Today we're looking at the theme of helping others. It's a really important theme because the more we help others, then the bigger we become. Our hearts just become big-hearted people. And that means we become people who really make a difference to where we are in a really good way. When we choose not to help others, when we just don't notice people, then we become selfish and we can become mean and we can become only interested in ourselves. And that means our hearts don't become big and we don't make that difference where we could previously have done so. So we learn to help others. That's what we're thinking about during this week. Let me tell you a story, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I'll just tell part of it today. It's a story about a giant, and he had a garden, and his garden was so beautiful. It had 12 peach trees in it. In springtime, the blossom filled the trees, delicate pink and pearl. The grass was decorated with flowers like stars in the sky. It was a beautiful garden, and the birds flew joyously with speed around this garden, singing just wonderful bird song. Every day after school, the children from the village school would come and they would play in the garden. They would have so much fun. Every so often even, they would stop and just listen to the bird's song, which was so beautiful. You see, the giant, he was away on holiday. He was away visiting his ogre friend in Cornwall. He'd been away for 7 years. His conversation had now run out because his conversation was very limited. And so he decided to come home. Now, when he came home and he saw all the children playing in his garden, he was not happy. He called out in a gruff voice, "Get away out of my garden!" And he chased the children from the garden. He put up a really high wall around the garden so nobody could get in. And he erected outside the wall several notices which said, "Trespassers will be prosecuted." He was a selfish giant. He didn't want anybody else playing in his garden. Well, winter departed and spring arrived, but not in the giant's garden. Winter didn't depart and spring never arrived. A little flower poked his head from the earth, noticed the notice, "Trespassers will be prosecuted," and decided this is no place for a spring flower, and so went back down under the earth. There was only snow and frost in the garden. The grass was covered with a cloak of white snow, and frost painted the trees silvery grey. Frost invited the north wind. The north wind, wrapped in furs, arrived and roared around the garden. It roared and blew so hard that the chimney pots of the giant's house tumbled down. North wind invited hail. Hail came in 3 hours every day, clattered on the giant's rooftop until it broke many slates. Hail was dressed in dark grey, and its breath was like ice. Years went by. Winter stayed. Spring, summer, autumn never arrived. The giant now was an old man, and one morning he awoke, but he awoke to the most wonderful music. What was that music? It was coming from outside. Has spring arrived? He drew back the curtains, and there was a linnet bird singing just such a beautiful, beautiful song. And the giant looked across the garden and saw a wonderful sight. The peach trees. The peach trees were in blossom, and there were children playing in the garden and climbing the trees because the children had found a way into the garden. The wall had broken in the far corner, and they had come in. The trees were all in blossom, except one in the far corner, which was still silvery grey. Frost was still dancing in the branches, and there was a little boy underneath the tree with his arms reached out high, who couldn't get into the tree. The tree was calling to the boy, "Come," just a little bit higher, but the boy could not reach. The giant, something in his heart melted. He realized he had been so selfish. And so the giant shambled his way down the stairs and opened the big front door of his castle and out into the garden. And when the children saw him, the children in the garden ran away, and winter came to all the trees that had once now been in blossom. But the giant did not notice them. He only saw the little boy in the far corner of the garden who couldn't get into the tree. And he shambled his way over to the little boy. And as he got to the little boy, he picked him up and he placed him into the tree. Immediately as he did this, pink, delicate pearl blossom came onto that tree. The birds came and sat in its branches together with the little boy. And the children who had been watching from the village, had been watching what was happening, they returned into the garden. And now the whole garden was ablaze with blossom and flowers and the sound of birdsong. You see, the selfish giant, he realized he'd been really selfish. He hadn't been helping others. He had chosen just to be concerned about himself. And it meant that winter had stayed in his garden. He had been reduced. He had been really deeply affected. And something in him had been lost. But now he had changed. And he decided now he was no longer going to be the selfish giant. That's just such a lovely story. It's only part of it. There's another part which comes at the end of the story, and I'll tell you that one in a couple of months' time, just before Easter. But it's a story which just reminds us just how important it is to notice people around us, and to remember that we can help those people. No matter what age they may be, and no matter what age we may be, we can help those people. So what I'd like you to do over these next few days is write a prayer. Write a prayer asking God to do something good for these people. Maybe if the person that we're thinking of is not very well, asking God, please would you make them better? Would you help them to be patient and to be strong? Keep your prayer really, really simple. It might be just something like, please God, would you help my mum to be really happy today? Or it might be, please God, look after my pet dog whose paw is hurting. Look after my pet dog. Or it could be, a friend in school, please God, would you help? And then name the person, because they're really finding doing their schoolwork really difficult. Please help them. Find somebody, notice somebody whom you can write a prayer about. Keep it really simple and then pray it 2 times each day for just a few days. And then when you've done that, write another prayer about somebody else, not yourself, somebody else, asking God to help them. At the end of the prayer, write that word, Amen. Jesus, you helped people. Jesus, help me to help others today. Amen. Amen. Amen.